10 square feet. Can anybody picture how large that actually is? A typical answer is 2 feet by 5 feet, but can you actually visualize how large that is? 10 square feet is about the size of an airplane bathroom, to visualize that for you. 10 square feet is actually smaller than this red dot that I am standing on right now. And 10 square feet is the footprint of elevator B, which today I want to talk about the impacts that this very small project has had for its clients, for its owner, for its designers, for its site, and for its city. So elevator B is a 22-foot tall, stainless steel clad, steel tube structured beehive. It's located in Silo City in Buffalo, New York, along the Buffalo River. In Silo City, just to let you know about the site itself, it's the only place on the planet that you can actually go and see every single method of concrete construction used to construct grain elevators. The owner of Silo City had a problem. He wanted to redevelop one of his buildings, the owner being Rick Smith, and he owns a metal fabrication company next door to the site. And so this was his problem. He had a 6-foot tall beehive in one of the boarded up windows in this office building that he owned. And so he called an exterminator, and the exterminator said, no, I can't touch this. And I can't touch this. These are honeybees. It's not, something that I can do. You have to call a beekeeper. So he's talking to beekeepers. They said, yeah, we can help you with this, but we need somewhere to put it. So over a few beers, I'm sure, with some faculty from the University of Buffalo School of Architecture and Planning, which for the rest of my talk, I'm just going to call it UB, they developed this idea of having student architects come in, pitch ideas, and with the potential of building whatever is selected to move the bees into. And so what ended up happening is Rick came to the school and he said, I want 2 things. 1, to house the bees in, and 2, I need something that will symbolize the regeneration of Silo City. So all the students that showed up, there was about 40 students, both undergrad and graduate students. Over 10 ideas were pitched, and through this very, very rigorous process, through an entire semester, my design with 4 other students was selected. So our design, it basically takes inspiration from the grain elevators that surround this. So when you're standing in a silo, there's literally nowhere to look but straight up. So we wanted to emulate that. And it worked out well then for housing the bees because then that puts them up above you, above the visitor, out of harm's way from you, but also from other natural predators that are around there. And so what you can see in this photo is, or in the drawings, is this where the bees are actually housed in our bee cab. And that can actually raise and lower. So in the up position is where a visitor would come and actually witness and see the bees. And then you can lower it for a beekeeper to actually access it. And hopefully then an educational group could come and actually see the bees up close. Now when I say we, it's not just me that designed and built this. Myself, Dan Need, Kyle Maslinski, Scott Seelan, and Lisa Stern. We finished this in our last semester while graduate students at UB, and we really like to stress that we did not get school credit for this. We did. It was all on the side, and we definitely did not get paid. This was strictly for the opportunity to build something down at the site. We built this at the school's material and method shop. We have an excellent shop there. And so we fabricated everything ourselves. We did work with Rigidized Metals, which is the company that Rick owns right next door to Silo City. And since they were the project sponsor for this, we figured it would be wise to actually use their material in our design. And it's an opportunity for them to showcase how their materials can be used in new and in innovative ways. So this is the tower stand up before we clad it and while Kyle is cladding it. And so we worked with Rigid Eyes to actually develop the panels that actually go around it, both for structure and to make sure that it actually performed the way that we wanted to for both solar shading and for solar gain. So once it was up, we had a beekeeper come in. He removed all the bees from their window and then placed them in the tower. And I'd like to stress that he literally just placed the bees in the bee cab. He didn't move any honeycomb. They just were kind of left to their own devices. It was a stressful first week. We didn't know if they were actually going to take to it. We couldn't know 100%. We worked with beekeepers throughout the design process, but no one could be sure. So after the first week, they did end up starting to build honeycomb, and they took to it. So it was a win in our book that this actually happened. So that was our goal, is we wanted to build something that bees would live in. That was the task. But what ended up happening is that we started getting all this interest from both the city and on the left here is a city map of what kind of impacts the project has. It actually continues the pollination of a local nature preserve, community gardens, and on the right is a world map of the number of hits that we received on our website after the first 6 months. So we started plugging the project and we tossed it out to a few different websites. And after the first, well actually to date, we've had hits on our website from 88 different countries. And we've also had inquiries from Australia as to how did you make this? How are you maintaining this? We want to have that similar management strategy for our community. We've had developers from the Pacific Northwest saying we want to work with you to put one of these into our development that we're building. And we've had visitors from all over the globe come here. Scott was down just working at the site one day, and he saw this car come in and said, you know, they looked a little out of place. So he approached them, said, what are you doing here? It's technically his private property. They said, oh, we drove down here from Montreal to see the beehive. Said, okay, let me see it. Or, you know, let me show it to you. What else are you guys doing here while you're in Buffalo? They said, no, we're here to see the beehive, and then we're leaving. So he managed to convince them to stay the night and see some other stuff. But so I mean, that's the impact, is they drove with just a day trip in mind to see this. So a professor then said, hey, you know, you're getting a lot of traction on this. You should start submitting it to design competitions. So to date, we've won outright 3 out of 4 international design competitions. And we were finalists in the 4th. And we've been published in a variety of newspapers, magazines, websites, blogs, not just for architecture and design and for urban planning, but also for bee hobbyist websites and ecology websites. And so it's really this huge impact and a lot of traction that, again, all we wanted to do was make something that was different than a typical bee box that a beekeeper would keep, but we just wanted to make something that bees would live in. So, but our second goal was that the design facilitate educational programs. So we have had tons of field trips from the Buffalo Public Schools, from the local nature preserve, Tiff Nature Preserve, and from other after-school programs. And it's worked out for Rigid Eyes very well. They've had numerous inquiries trying to test and further push their products. So There has been projects since that have actually removed structure from their product, and their product itself then becomes the structure. But most importantly in my book is that parents bring their kids to the site to show them the beehive, or kids ask their parents to come down. But what ends up happening is that then the parents, in addition to the kids, start asking questions about the site as a whole. So there's this a misconception that maybe this whole site should just be torn down. It's vacant. We don't need grain elevators anymore for their original purpose. And so the parents come down, and then they start asking questions about the site, and they want to know, what does a grain elevator do? What are you doing now with them? How can we actually reuse them? And so that achieves Rick's goal of getting more people down to Silo City and understanding the site. So back to our smallest of clients, all the honeybees. So this is a photo of move-in day or move-in week when they were swarming around the hive. And we are extremely proud to say that then they did take to it, and they didn't try to go elsewhere. But they did end up building honeycomb in the bee cab and in elevator B. So we are continuing to work on a management strategy for the continued success of this project. But this photo, it was taken after 6 months of occupation in the beehive. So again, we basically placed the bees into the bee cab, and then they took to it right away. So what we really end up hoping continues to happen with this project, and that what we've hoped to prove that regardless of the size of your design or the size of your footprint, that it really can make a difference, and that regardless of how small it is, it really can make a difference in the community, to your client, for the designers, and for your visitors.